If you're a left-wing celebrity, and is there really any other kind, you need to virtue signal by telling everyone you're not racist. This will make sure you still get booked by woke TV commissioners, and it'll distract everyone from your tax dodging. One of the ways you can virtue signal is by pretending you want open borders. This is the ultimate socialist virtue signal because you personally get all the credit for wanting open borders, but you're safe in the knowledge that any negative consequences will fall on other people. The men who make it across the channel on small boats are dumped on deprived working class communities, nowhere near your gated mansion with its security. And if anyone in the working class communities complains, you can call them racist, earning you even more virtue points. Here's how to do it. The first thing you've got to do is say that Britain is exactly like Nazi Germany. You might be thinking, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure Nazi Germany wasn't a proudly multiracial country with laws to prevent discrimination, equal rights for LGBTQ+ people, and was so tolerant and bountiful that ethnic minorities crossed the seas and risked their lives to get into it, and the Nazis were actually more into expanding their borders than enforcing their borders. It doesn't matter. Nothing has to make sense when you're a celebrity virtue signalling. Even though it cynically minimises the horror of Nazi Germany, you can say it anyway. Some people will say that this is offensive to victims of the Nazis, but it's actually more offensive to Nazis, who probably wouldn't appreciate being compared to Britain, as they put a lot of effort into being evil, and they could get a train to run on time. Some people might have concerns about uncontrolled immigration having negative consequences, such as lower wages, terrorism, pressure on public services, grooming gangs, social discord, links to criminal gangs, and so on. These people are all far-right bigots for having questions. If one of these racist Nazis does question the wisdom of open borders, here's how you can virtue signal even more. Some people will say, "Ooh, I'm worried that open borders risks letting terrorists in." You should definitely call these people racist, as this hardly ever happens. I mean, I suppose there was the Manchester Arena bomber who was rescued from Libya by the Royal Navy. There was the guy who tried to blow up the Liverpool maternity hospital, who was a refugee from Iraq. There are the 21/7 London bombers, the Parsons Green bomber, the London Bridge attacker, the Reading knife stabber. I mean, alright, there are a few, but only around a quarter of terrorist attacks were carried out by asylum seekers. Most terrorist attacks are actually carried out by people born in Britain whose parents came from these cultures, not new arrivals, which should be immensely reassuring, as it shows that once you've let hateful ideologies into the country, they can linger on through generations. Terrorism is actually good for Britain anyway, as it provides valuable employment for the security services tasked with looking out for the 43,000 potential terrorists on watch lists in the UK. If they weren't doing it, they'd have to waste their time working to reduce some other crime. Do you want that? Most asylum seekers don't commit any terrorism anyway, so it's unfair on them to be worried about dangerous people coming in with them. I mean, if you had a bowl of sweets and some of the sweets were poisoned, you'd eat all the sweets, right? It would be unfair on the unpoisoned sweets if you didn't, you racist. Actually, terrorism is a far-right term. It should be referred to as culturally enriched euthanasia. And as a Labour MP once said, the victims need to shut up for the good of diversity. Some people will say, "Ooh, but the people smugglers are criminal gangs linked to the drugs and prostitution trade." Listen, sex work is real work, you fascist. Trafficked women probably like being strangled by an Albanian pimp and forced to have sex with men to pay off an imaginary debt. Also, if you're a lefty celebrity, you want cheaper coke and prostitutes. The real problem is that there are no legal routes. I mean, there are lots of legal routes. The UK government website literally lists ways migrants and asylum seekers can apply to stay in the UK. But when you're virtue signalling, you can just lie that there are literally no legal routes, like Jolyon Rubinstein did. It's fine. Everybody does it. Some people might say, "Ooh, but cross-channel migrants aren't fleeing desperate conditions as they've come through so many safe countries before setting off from the beaches of France to come to Britain. Some even originated in safe countries like Albania." As a lefty celebrity, you'll know that standards of customer service in French restaurants are a clear breach of the Geneva Convention. Despite Britain being literally Nazi Germany and the EU being great, it's essential that people come from the EU to the UK. It just makes sense. Some people will say, "Ooh, but won't open borders lead to uncontrolled immigration that'll suppress wages?" Listen, anyone who says this is a far-right extremist. Yes, an unlimited supply of labour pushes down working class wages, but this means that businesses are more profitable, so just own the business instead of being working class, you racist bigot. Some people will say, but aren't these boats mainly full of men coming from cultures with attitudes to women, LGBTQ people and freedom of speech that are incompatible with Western Europe with its culture of tolerance and pluralism? This is also deeply racist. Britain has magic soil. Even if someone comes from a culture where infidel women are seen as whores who are fair game, or thinks that homosexuality should be punished by death, as soon as these people set foot on British land, the magic soil imbues them with Western liberal values. Anyone who doesn't believe in Britain's magic soil is a far-right extremist. Also, how do you know the boats are mainly men? We don't know what gender they identify as, you bigot. Some people will say, won't all these extra people arriving in the country cause house prices to increase as they need somewhere to live? This is nonsense, as each cross-channel migrant brings a 3-bedroom semi-detached brick house with them on the boat. Also, if you're a celebrity, you'll own property, so rising house prices are good for you. They're just bad for working class people who want to buy a house and start a family. And who cares about those people? They're literally Nazis. Some people will also say, isn't it bad that people are dying in the sea trying to get here? Listen, anyone who cares about human life is a far-right extremist. Being left-wing is about prioritising ideology over human life. So communists are fine with tens of millions starving, because communism is about striving for equality rather than letting people look after themselves and strive for dinner. And lefty virtue signallers are fine with people risking their lives in the channel if it means borders aren't controlled. And don't worry about your virtue signalling actually having any impact in stopping the government from closing the borders. You'll be insulated from its effects. I mean, it's not as if the government will dump hundreds of migrant men in your neighbourhood. You're rich, and you're safe in the knowledge that people in the government will probably have to make the unpleasant yet essential decisions to solve the small boats crisis. And when they do, you can call them racist and virtue signal some more. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your mates and Gary Lineker. And if you'd like to support me making these videos, you can become a Patreon. From as little as £3 a month, you get exclusive content, including Patreon-only episodes of Clown World and a Patreon-only podcast with a criminal barrister. And I get money to spend on stuff. Thanks for listening. Bye.